Well, now let's see if we can get a chi-square test of independence template. I kind of started with that same idea. Now here I just went ahead and started with things in a nice format, but I've got my chi-square test of independence. Again, you can always pause this to look at each piece, but I have my null hypothesis, my alternative hypothesis, observed data counts is all of this stuff, and so that's what's in yellow because I'll put that in. Now here you see I've got 12 by 12, so I've got C's here for column, 12 columns, 12 rows. So the yellow part's 12 by 12. That's what I might fill in with data. And then for row totals and column totals, I've made that gray. Then I make exactly the same size rectangle for the expected count. So I can just highlight this whole thing once I make it, copy it, paste it right here below. That's what I did. And then I made everything gray because I won't fill in anything here other than formulas. It will populate all by itself. And then I made yet another copy, but notice I didn't need I got rid of, I just deleted the column totals here and the row totals there, because we are going to have to sum up this whole thing, but I just do it here when it's time. And so you see basically I've made 3 of these rectangles, just doing copy and paste and then changing the things here, making them gray. I mean, you don't have to fill in any colors, but it helps me. And then I've got the test statistic, which will be summing up this whole thing here. We'll have to do our degrees of freedom. That's basically the same way we did it before with the chi-square goodness of fit, but a little bit different because we have to multiply. And then the p-value is done exactly the same. Once I have the statistic and the degrees of freedom, I use that same command. So I've entered 15 data points here. I think these first 5 are exactly what I did in the goodness of fit. Here I just reversed them, and then I did all 20s just to kind of do something. So now again, what we need to do is sum these things up, and so I'll say equals sum. I'm just going to go here and highlight what I need, close that off with a closing parenthesis, hit enter, drag that down. I could drag it all the way to the bottom, doesn't really matter, but I drag this one over. And so here then I say equals sum, and I need to do the column, so I'll sum that whole column, close that off, so that's done, hit enter, and again just grab that on the bottom and pull it over to fill everything in, and so I've got my 300 total there. And we're going to want to do the same thing here. So really, if I wanted to, I can just say copy that whole thing and paste it here. And of course, everything's zeros. And again, I can copy that whole thing. Say copy and paste it, and everything's zeros. But if I look at a formula, I see it's summing the right thing there. So okay, now in these I don't have those totals, so I'll worry about filling this piece in. So again, to fill this piece in, what I need to do is I need to take the column sum for that column, so that's 70, since it's first column. First row, take that 100, multiply that, multiply those two together, divide by the 300. And so this kind of takes quite an interesting formula. So again, though, I don't want to fill anything in unless there's data there. So I'm going to use that if conditional and is number. And what I'll do is just check to see if there's a number there. And if there is, great. And I'll put a comma. I'm not sure why it's doing this funky thing with the showing it in two places, but here it is so far. I have is, if it is a number up there, what I want to do is then I need to take that 70 times that 100 and divide by that 300. Now, as I move this around, copy it around, what I need to have happen is that I always look at the 300 for the division here. And whoops, so I'm going to click on that again. I may have to, I don't know, I may have to go up here to put in my dollar signs just because it's kind of acting a little odd. Maybe if I arrow over, there we go. Okay, so I know I need dollar signs on the N and the 19 because no matter where I copy in here, I need to be looking at that N19. But now I looked here at B19, that's 70. As I copy down, I want to continue looking at that 70. So I don't want that 19 to change, so I'm going to come over here and put a dollar sign on the 19. But actually I need the B to change because when I copy to the side, I need to, instead of looking at 70, if I'm looking at this 10, I need to look at 50. So I don't want a dollar sign on that B. And then similarly, I do want a dollar sign on the N here because I'm always going to be in this column. But as I move down rows, I need to also move down rows here, so I don't want a dollar sign on the 7. And so that takes care of what happens if there is a number. And then again, if there's not, I just do the double quotes twice, close that off, hit enter, and I get a nice number there. And now I can just pull this down, and you see it just filled in the top 3 because of the is number thing. And I can pull it over and fill that in, and it did those 5, and there we go. And I can check the totals, and the totals worked out. It looks like everything did great. And notice these 3 rows all look the same. Well, these totals are all the same, so those rows should look all the same, so that's great. Okay, so we've got that, and nothing filled in that wasn't a number. And then I want to do a similar thing here now I'm doing my z-squareds. So again, for z-squareds, well, I'll start with my if and is number. And now I'm not going to look here. I'm going to go ahead and look there to make sure it's a number. I want my data. I close that off. So if it is a number, what do I need to do? Well, I need to take the square of the difference between that 10 and that 23.3. So I need a parenthesis. I'll go click on the 10 to make sure I get the right spot. Minus that 23. Close that off. Do a square, so a caret with a 2. And then I need to divide by the expected number, the 23, And so that's what I do if there is a number, and if there isn't, I do the 2 double quotes again so nothing shows up. So there I've got my formula. I hit enter. And now this, it's that same formula. And I notice I didn't use any dollar signs because I needed to change, you know, every place I move, I needed to move relative in these 2 rectangles. So I can just copy it down, copy it over, and of course again I only get those filled in, and there I have my z-squared values. So now I need to sum those up. That's pretty simple. I just say sum, and I'll just highlight this whole thing, and again it doesn't matter if there's nothing there, it just doesn't add it in, which is fine. And I close that parenthesis, and that gives me my chi-square test statistic. Now degrees of freedom, what I need to do is count how many columns I use and subtract 1, and I need to count how many rows I use and subtract 1, and multiply those 2 things together. So I'll say equals, I'm going to have parentheses around my count because I need to subtract 1. So I'll say count, and I'll count the rows first, the columns first. So I'll count how much is here. There's my dog barking. So count and then minus 1. So that was my number of columns, and then times parenthesis count. And now I need to go get my number of rows. That's actually my dog's playing, if you can hear that in the back. So I close that off. Minus 1. Close that. And so now I've taken the number of columns minus 1 times the number of rows minus 1. I hit enter. I get 8 for that answer, and that looks right, because I had 5 here, so minus 1 is 4. I had 3 there, so minus 1 is 2, so 4 times 2 is 8. And now I do my chi-dist again, so equals chi-dist, and I need to give it the number, the test statistic, and degrees of freedom, and I hit enter, and there we go. And this is a very small p-value, 9.9 times 10 to the negative 8th. So what, 10 to the negative, well, this is basically a 10, so that's really about 10 to the negative 7th. Well, that 10 to the 7th is 10 million, so this is 1 in 10 million chance that these came from rows, from a population of rows that should have all looked alike. So not too likely. Well, that seems reasonable given this went from 10 up to 40 and this went from 40 down to 10. Alright, so that is creating our template. We can do things as big as 12 by 12. That should probably do us just fine. And we've got a p-value, and we'll give you some other sets of data to test to check your p-value, but there you go. All done.